Yo, what's up? Dr. Swole here, MD bodybuilder, back with another video. Today we're going to be comparing two really popular splits, and those are push-pull legs and the Arnold split. A bodybuilding split is basically how you split up your muscle group training across the week. And splits are something I wondered a lot about as a beginner. Quick outline for today, we're going to be talking about both of these splits. I'll start off by introducing the splits and how they're set up across the week. Then we'll talk about the Arnold split and the push-pull leg split, going over both of their pros and cons. Lastly, I'll put everything together to give you some recommendations on which of these splits you should be using. If you've been getting value from my channel, make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's get into it. Okay, let's start off with an introduction to these two splits. First of all, push-pull legs divides up your training into 3 days, which I recommend you repeat twice in the week. So, a 6-day split. On push day, you train the muscles involved in pushing movements. So your chest, shoulders, and triceps. And on pull days, you train muscles involved in pulling movements. So your back and your biceps. On leg days, you train your legs, so quads, hamstrings, glutes, and calves. Now, right off the bat, I'll mention that the push-pull leg split and the Arnold split are not beginner splits. They are ideally set up for 6 days per week each, and that's because you want to train each muscle group at least twice per week. And beginners really just don't need 6 days in the gym per week. People in their first 1 to 2 years of serious training can usually do well with 3 or 4 days per week in the gym. And you don't really need more days until you actually need more volume in order to progress. Now, the other thing about push-pull legs is the setup, so I recommend people train legs push-pull, legs push-pull. And this way you start off your week with the toughest day after your rest day, which is going to be your leg day. And in the middle of the week when you have the switch around, you have your pull day coming before your leg day. This is better because a tough leg day can interfere with your pull day coming after, but not so much the other way around. Okay, let's touch on a few similarities between these two programs. First of all, both of them have a twice per week frequency at a minimum. So you saw that every muscle group gets directly trained twice per week. And in the Arnold split, you actually get a 4 times per week frequency for your shoulders and arms. Next, these are both best set up for 6 days per week. And this is in order to satisfy the previous so that you actually get that twice per week frequency, which is what I recommend. Next, both of these programs have a 2-to-1 ratio of upper body days to lower body days. And this allows you to balance volumes or have an upper body focus. One of the issues with the upper lower split, if you ran it for 4 days per week or say 6 days per week, is that there are just more muscles in the upper body to train. And thus you end up having really long upper body days, or you just have trouble adding volume for the upper body. So these splits do a good job of balancing out your volumes. Lastly, the Arnold and push-pull leg splits work well with strength programming, and this comes out of having at least twice per week frequency, where you have the opportunity to practice movements more often. Okay, now let's introduce the Arnold split. So in this split, again, you have 3 days that you'll repeat later in the week for a 6 days per week program. On day 1, you train your chest and back. On day 2, you have your shoulders and arms. So shoulders, biceps, and triceps. And on day 3, you have legs, quads, hamstrings, glutes, and calves. The difference between these two splits mainly lies in your upper body training. In push-pull legs, you divide up your upper body according to pushing and pulling muscles. And in the Arnold split, you divide things up in terms of chest and back and shoulders and arms. The main thing that happens here is that you get to train your shoulders and arms when they're fresh, and you also get higher frequency for your shoulder and arm training. Okay, let's talk about the pros and cons of the Arnold split. Starting off with the pros. First of all, you get to train your shoulders and arms when they're fresh. And I think this is the big advantage of the Arnold split. In most popular science-based splits like full body, push-pull legs, and upper lower, you train your shoulders and arms at the end of the workout after your pushing and pulling exercises. The problem is that you usually are fatigued in these muscles by the time you actually get to train them. Some people will say that you can just move your shoulder and arm training to the beginning of the workout. This is not ideal because the small muscle groups are used indirectly in your main pushing and pulling movements. And if, for example, you have really fatigued triceps going into a bench press, you're not going to lift as much, and you're going to take away from your chest and shoulder training. The problem is that you're benefiting the small muscle groups at the expense of your larger muscle groups and your more compound movements, which just involve more muscle mass. And you're probably going to lose out on overall gains. Now in the Arnold split, you get to train your shoulders and arms on their own dedicated day, and you'll probably be able to lift more weight for more reps on your shoulders and arms exercises. Next advantage of the Arnold split is that you get a high frequency for your shoulder and arm training. As I pointed out, your shoulders and arms are getting trained 4 times per week, since the shoulders and arms get indirectly worked on your horizontal pressing for the chest, and your biceps get trained indirectly in pulling movements for the back. This is a good thing because the shoulders and arms often do well with higher frequencies, which especially becomes an issue as you graduate to higher volumes. Now the other pro of the Arnold split is the fact that you get high frequency pressing. This way you're able to give some priority to your accessory pushing movements like your overhead press and your close grip bench press. This might help you progress faster in these movements and can also indirectly help your bench press. Lastly, the Arnold split is good for antagonistic supersets. Antagonist supersets are where you alternate exercises involving opposing musculature. And in the Arnold split, we have lots of opportunities to do this in supersetting our chest and back exercises, biceps and tricep exercises, and some quad and hamstring exercises. Antagonist supersets are a great way to save time in the gym without sacrificing training performance. Okay, now let's talk about the cons of the Arnold split. People criticize this split because you have shoulder training and chest training back to back. This can be an issue for people who really like training beyond failure or people with shoulder injuries. But there are ways around this. If you modulate your intensity and exercise selection, you can set this up as having a heavier first chest day, followed by a lighter shoulder day, and then later in the week having an easier chest day followed by a tougher shoulder day. The other con of the Arnold split is that you have suboptimal fatigue distribution. Fatigue distribution refers to how you spread out your training stress across the week. And in general, you want your training stress to be as evenly distributed across the week as possible. This will ensure that you perform your best on every workout. And in this split, you'll see that your shoulder and arm day is significantly easier than your leg day. This isn't as bad as a bro split where you have a full-on arm day and a full-on leg day and just one of them per week, but it isn't perfect either. Okay, now that we've talked about the Arnold split, let's move on to push-pull legs. So starting with the pros, push-pull legs is nice because you have no interference between days. That is, the exercises on your push, pull, and leg days don't interfere with each other. And this is nice because it makes it easy to set up. Push-pull legs is very intuitive for people to think about, and thus it's easier to put on paper. Now, for cons of the push-pull leg split, first of all, your shoulders and arms are fatigued after pushing and pulling movements. We talked about this earlier, but your shoulders, your biceps, and your triceps do get used during your pushing and pulling movements. And if you put their direct training at the end of the workout, they're going to be fatigued and won't perform as well. Your performance is important for bodybuilding because volume is an important driver of hypertrophy. And you can break volume down into sets times reps times weight lifted. So if you're actually able to do more work for those muscle groups, they will probably grow more. The other way to think about this is mechanical tension is the main driver of hypertrophy, and if you're able to lift more weight for more reps, you're just applying more tension. The other thing is that with the traditional push-pull leg setup, your push days are going to be significantly longer than your pull days. And this is just because you have more muscle groups to train. Okay, so overall, what are my recommendations? First of all, both of these splits are set up for 6 days per week and allow for at least twice per week frequency for each muscle group. But overall, I'd say the winner is the Arnold split. And this is largely because of the ability to train your shoulders and arms when they're fresh and with a higher frequency. A lot of naturals have weak shoulders and arms, and if you do have 6 days in the week to train, you may as well give them some priority. Now, in terms of when I would favor push-pull legs, if you have shoulder issues and you have trouble having your chest and shoulder day back to back, then push-pull legs might be a safer option. And this might also apply to people who follow really high intensity training styles where they go far beyond failure every time. And in that case, you might have trouble with the higher frequencies of pressing. But I think the Arnold split is underrated and more people should be trying it instead of push-pull legs. Now, my question to you is, have you used the push-pull legs or Arnold split or both? And what were your experiences with them? Let me know. If you want to see how I program the Arnold split for 6 days per week, check out this video where I go through a full hypertrophy program based on the Arnold split. If you're getting value from my channel, make sure you like the video and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.